Hey folks, today I want to share one of my favorite books, which is probably going to be chiefly of interest to science fiction authors, but I think it may have some things to offer fantasy authors as well. And the book is called The Design of Everyday Things, and it was written by a gentleman named Don Norman, who has degrees in both engineering and psychology, according to his CV, and has written a great many guides in general to how things can be designed in a way that complements human psychology and supports it. And that's turned out to be a surprisingly difficult thing to do. When Don Norman wrote the first version of this book, it was originally going to be called The Psychology of Everyday Things, and the publishers persuaded him to change it to the name The Design of Everyday Things so that it could be marketed a little bit more effectively. This turned out to be a really good idea because the book has been a tremendous success, and it's since been revised. I have been reading the revised edition in preparation for talking about it. And the basic idea behind it is that it is about how to think about the designs of things in a way, again, that complements human behavior. Most of the time when we encounter something that's badly designed, we tend to blame ourselves because we can't figure it out. And one of the classic examples of this that Don Norman brings up is when we are confronted with a door where we don't know where to push to open it, because the design of the door gives us no cues, no obvious cues as to how to open it, where to push on it, whether we should pull or push, etc., etc. A well-designed door we can simply walk up to and use. It becomes something we don't even think about. The minute we are forced to sit down and think about how something is supposed to be used, frustration enters the picture. And the last thing we want to do is build things that frustrate people because then they won't use them. So the book goes into a great deal of detail about how surprisingly complex and difficult it is to build things that complement human behavior and that work seamlessly with the way that we live our lives. So the first part of the book tends to be occupied a good deal with what he calls the psychology of everyday actions. And a lot of the psychology of everyday actions, as he points out, is subconscious. It's not stuff we think about. We just do things. And so things have to be built in a way that complements our existing subconscious behaviors. And so the way that we do this is by looking at the existing subconscious behaviors and by complementing them by way of things like feedback, how something responds to the way we use it, or things like constraints, how something it prevents us from doing things with it. Classic example of that would be a door that only opens one way, or that a key that can only be inserted into a certain kind of lock. A big part of the book is aimed at ensuring that people who make things do not end up blaming the users of those things for not being smart enough to figure them out. One of the things that Don Norman is very adamant about in this book is that human error is not something that we should think of as being the culprit for when something is not usable. We should blame the design first. Things are built to support us. They are built to complement our lives, not the other way around. And every time we build something that does not do this, every time we build something that encourages human failure, it is the designers that have failed, not the user of the object itself. So there is a great deal of material in here to sink into and to think about. If you are, for instance, designing a science fiction setting where there's a lot of gadgetry, or where there have been specific things that are being designed that are failing people. And so this could give you ideas about how in your world things are breaking, or conversely, how they are being designed well. So the book is useful if you're thinking about constructing something that's either utopian or dystopian, depending on your proclivities. And so you can draw lots of different lessons from what Norman has been talking about here. You can draw positive ones or negative ones. It's entirely up to you. And that's the great thing about it, is that it's a resource for things that you can apply either way. Another thing that Norman goes into towards the end of the book is about the moral implications of designing things well and designing things badly. Badly designed things tend to be sent to the junk heap that much more quickly. Well-designed things tend to last. It doesn't take a whole lot of thinking to realize that bad design may actually end up driving out good if what you really want to do is sell everybody on this year's model of something. And at the very end, Norman has something that I could describe as a utopian vision, which I am personally very enamored with. And he describes it as the rise of the small. He says, "I dream of the power of individuals, whether alone or in small groups, to unleash their creative spirits, their imagination, and their talents to develop a wide range of innovation. New technologies promise to make this possible. Now, for the first time in history, individuals can share their ideas, their thoughts, and dreams. they can produce their own products, their own services, and make these available to anyone in the world. All can be their own master, exercising whatever special talents and interests they may have. What drives this dream? The rise of small, efficient tools that empower individuals. The list is large and growing continuously. Consider the rise of musical explorations through conventional electronic and virtual instruments. Consider the rise of self-publishing, bypassing conventional publishers, printers, and distributors, and replacing these with inexpensive electronic editions available to anyone in the world to download to ebook readers. He goes on in this vein, but I think the idea should be very clear. One of the things that is encouraged by good design is the ability to turn it outwards and to make it into tools that everyone can use to further enrich other people's experiences by building things and so on and so forth. So a lot of what he talks about in this book is not just stuff that can be applied to the future, or it could be applied, to a retro past where everything is either perfect or breaking. It also applies to right now. So if you're thinking about something in the Cory Doctorow vein, for instance, where he's actually talking about what's happening right in front of us at this very moment, if in only a slightly exaggerated way, then almost everything that he has to say in this book about the way things are built is going to be of tremendous value. And at the end of the day, this is just a wonderfully readable, stimulating, intelligent book loaded with examples. And on every page, there's something to think about. There's some confrontation that he brings you to with the way things are made in this world in ways that you just probably never even sat down to think about for more than a few seconds. So for both of those reasons, I highly recommend it. It's available digitally as well as in physical print format, and I'm happy to report that the digital version is just about as good as the print version because there are a fair number of illustrations and they have been ported over and formatted in the digital edition in ways that nicely complement the print edition. Whatever format you get it in, check it out. Hope you find it fascinating, because I know I did. See you around.